It was a little after noon on August 26, 1992, when Idaho State Police pulled over a green Ford Explorer just outside the tiny river hamlet of Riggins. Behind the wheel was Rob Nuckols, a modern-day mountain man who owned a ranch outside town. Like a lot of people around Riggins, Rob lived off the land. He fished, hunted, and grew his own food. He also, according to the cops, grew his own dope. Which explains why, as Rob was spread eagle on the asphalt, more than 24 federal agents were searching his ranch on the Salmon River. But since Rob's place was the last piece of private land in the midst of the Nez Perce National Forest, Riggins wondered, were the feds really looking for drugs or just an excuse to seize the property? By 1991, it seemed like the Nuckols family had it made. Not only did they have a beautiful ranch surrounded by breathtaking scenery and easily accessible via their homemade cable car, but their real estate business was flourishing too, thanks in large part to Rob's savvy salesmanship. But in the fall of 1991, an incoming call kicked off the biggest deal in Rob Nuckols' life. Only this time, Rob wouldn't be selling real estate. The caller was a woman Rob knew, named Tammy Kay.
We had been friends to some degree. I had known them when they lived in Grangeville. Her husband had been an operator out at the bark plant.
After her husband was laid off from the plant, the couple had moved to Lewiston looking for work. Instead, they found trouble. Or at least, that's what she told Rob.
She said that her husband wanted to get a job, that they'd gotten involved in cocaine down in Lewiston, and their lives were falling apart.
Rob naturally offered to help.
You got to be self-reliant to live in this part of the world, but you also need to be neighborly and help out where you can.
I said, sure. You know, I could use somebody who could run my tractor.
Tammy, however, wasn't too interested in becoming a ranch hand.
She said, I need to sell some weed. For a woman who doesn't have a job and who needs to get back on her feet, selling drugs is one of the few ways she can make money fast.
Trouble was, Tammy didn't have any drugs to sell, which is why she turned to Rob.
Tammy says, hey, I know a source where you can get me this pot, but he doesn't like me, I'm on bad terms, so can you at least be the middleman to get me these, this pound of marijuana?
He had a few questions that, he asked me, and then he said it was fine. Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
Ultimately, I got talked into it. It didn't seem like that big a deal at the time.
Everything seemed to go down as planned. Rob went to the dealer Tammy suggested, picked up her pound of marijuana, and paid $1,000 for it. Then, on November 19th, 1991, he met Tammy in a grocery store parking lot and sold the dope to Tammy for the exact same price.
He acted as a middleman. I don't think Rob made a dime on the deal.
9 months later, on August 26, 1992, Rob Nuckols was driving to his office in Riggins when an Idaho state trooper pulled in behind him, lights flashing.
During what he thought was a simple traffic stop, he thought he'd been stopped for speeding.
That is, until the trooper walked up to Rob's Ford Explorer with his gun drawn.
He told me to get out, lay down, and, spread eagle on the highway.
Handcuffed and stuffed into the cruiser, they read Rob his rights and told him the charge: drug trafficking.
They had a warrant for his arrest and arrested him, and obviously it was a total surprise to him.
I was afraid. I realized that probably I had walked into a trap, that I had been trapped, and that my goose might be cooked.
And in Rob's mind, it wasn't too hard to figure out why. If Rob was convicted of dealing drugs, forfeiture laws meant the feds were free to seize his property.
Drug forfeiture laws say, okay, here's Joe, drug kingpin. He's living in a beautiful house, he has a beautiful car, and he's got a lot of money in the bank. When we nail his ass, we're gonna be able to take that property and funnel it back into the war on drugs.
Or in Rob Nuckols' case, add his acreage to the Nez Perce National Forest.
Rob believes that they were targeting his property. They were trying to get back at him for a personal vendetta, and you know, out here, the best way to get back at somebody is to take their spread, to take their ranch. And it's a beautiful ranch.
Unfortunately, every attorney he talked to thought he was just some conspiracy-minded crank.
I spent about $15,000 on lawyers and got nothing. And so I figured if I'm going to have any chance at success, I better start reading law books.
Here's a guy that built his own house, grows his own food, schools his own kids. He says, well, what the hell? I'll just be my own attorney.
Assisted by Alegria, Rob's first move was to request a change of venue. It worked. Rather than Grangeville, the trial was moved to the small town of Moscow, home of the University of Idaho.
If you had to pick a place with a high concentration of sympathetic pot smokers, you might want to go to a college town. And so Rob made a pretty savvy play.
It wouldn't be the only one either. When the trial got underway on September 22, 1993, at the Latta County Courthouse, Rob represented himself. In his opening statement, Rob tackled the biggest piece of evidence against him, the surveillance tape.
He couldn't deny that he had indeed delivered marijuana to this undercover informant.
He didn't deny it. Instead, Rob made the tape the linchpin of his defense. The tape, he argued, was evidence, all right. Evidence of entrapment.
He knew that he had to prove he was entrapped. He had to convince the jury that he had been solicited by the state and talked into committing the crime by the representatives of the state.
First, the prosecutors called Tammy to the stand to recount buying drugs from Rob.
Tammy's testimony during the trial pretty much described the entire buy and how it worked.
They wanted me to tell them that I had bought drugs from him in the past and that I had seen him or knew of him doing shady things in his life or whatever, and I didn't, and I hadn't.
On the stand, Tammy testified that at first she'd refused to sell Rob out. But since she'd also been busted for selling cocaine, she wasn't exactly in a position to bargain.
They told me they were going to take my kids from me and that I could go to jail for 125 years. Well, as soon as they told me they were going to take my kids from me, it didn't matter what they asked me to do, I'd do it.
So she talked Rob into selling her some pot, which, according to Tammy, wasn't easy.
She admitted that the only way she was able to persuade him to deliver drugs to her was by telling him that she needed the drugs to kick a cocaine habit, and that cocaine was ruining her life, and that this was the only way she could get away from that drug.
Tammy also testified that she had to tell Rob where to find the drugs.
When he couldn't find any marijuana to sell her, the government then found a way to provide the marijuana that would then go into this crime.
Oh, and if Rob was a drug dealer, Tammy's testimony suggested that he wasn't a very good one.
He gets the pound of marijuana for one price and then sells it to Tammy for exactly the same price. So it doesn't look like he's trying to make a buck on her. He's you know, it makes it look like he's telling the truth. He's just lending a hand.
And if that wasn't enough, Tammy admitted that after buying the first pound of pot, she tried to buy more from Rob and failed.
She made lots and lots of phone calls trying to get me to make another sale, calling on the phone. I said, look, Tammy, I told you, I don't do this. I did it one time to help you out.
When the jury began deliberations on October 4th, 1993, Rob Nuckols, after years of self-reliant living, found his future in the hands of 12 strangers.
He kind of looked like a fish out of water. He didn't look entirely comfortable.
He was extremely stressed. He did not have any sleep for the several days.
Rob could rest easy from here on out. The jury found him not guilty.
I remember Rob yelling hallelujah, and then the jury erupted in laughter, and it was, I think, a relief for everyone involved.
I'm walking about 10 feet off the ground. Yeah, this is 13 months of just total working as hard as you can, trying to learn how to do all these things that lawyers do.
He defended himself and he triumphed. A lot of people thought he was going to get killed, but funny things happen when you've got the facts on your side.